Episode 9, Embarrassing Childhood Moments.
Let's talk about embarrassing moments from childhood. We've all been there, right? I remember one time in particular when I was in elementary school and I was giving a presentation in front of the whole class. I was so nervous that I forgot everything I was going to say. My mind went completely blank. So what did I do? Well, I did the only thing I could think of at the time. I just stood there, staring at my classmates like a deer in headlights. And then, out of nowhere, I let out the loudest, most embarrassing fart you can imagine. It was like a sonic boom. Needless to say, my classmates erupted in laughter. And to make matters worse, my teacher had to stop the presentation and ask me to leave the room to compose myself. Talk about mortifying. But you know what? Looking back on it now, I can laugh about it. I mean, we've all been in situations where we feel embarrassed or nervous. It's a part of life. And as much as we might wish we could go back in time and do things differently, those moments are what make us who we are today. So if you ever find yourself in an embarrassing situation, just remember, it's not the end of the world. Take a deep breath, laugh it off, and keep moving forward. And who knows, maybe one day you'll be able to turn that embarrassing moment into a hilarious story that you can share with others. I remember one time when I was in the 4th grade, we had a school assembly in the gymnasium. I was sitting on the bleachers, minding my own business, when I suddenly felt a sneeze coming on. Now, normally, sneezing isn't a big deal. But this was no ordinary sneeze. This was a sneeze of epic proportions. I tried to hold it in, but it was too strong. The sneeze exploded out of me like a volcano, and with it came an unexpected surprise, a giant snot rocket. It shot out of my nose and landed right on the back of the head of the kid in front of me. I was mortified. To make matters worse, the kid turned around and looked at me with disgust. And then, to add insult to injury, he wiped the snot off his head and flung it back at me. It was like something out of a horror movie. I wanted to crawl into a hole and die. But you know what? Looking back on it now, I realize that embarrassing moments like that are just a part of growing up. They make us who we are today. And besides, if you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at? Another embarrassing moment I had as a kid was when I tried to impress a girl I had a crush on. I was in the 6th grade, and I thought I was hot stuff because I had just learned how to do a front flip on the trampoline. So I decided to show off my new skill to the girl, thinking she would be totally impressed. Well, let's just say things didn't go quite as planned. I got a little too cocky and ended up doing the front flip too close to the edge of the trampoline. I flew off the trampoline and landed flat on my back on the ground. The girl burst out laughing, and so did everyone else who was watching. It was humiliating. But hey, at least I learned a valuable lesson that day. Never try to impress someone by doing something you're not totally confident in. Stick to what you know, and you'll avoid a lot of embarrassment in life. So, there you have it, folks. My embarrassing moments from childhood. I hope you enjoyed hearing about them, and I hope they made you feel a little less alone in your own embarrassing moments. Remember, we've all been there. It's just part of being human. Embarrassing moments from childhood, huh? Well, I don't know about you, but I have more than a few of those to choose from. Let me tell you, nothing quite compares to the feeling of shame you experience when you realize you've just done something incredibly embarrassing in front of a crowd of people. One of my most vivid memories of an embarrassing moment from my childhood was when I was about 8 years old. I was at a family reunion, and my cousins and I were all playing outside in the backyard. I had just finished drinking a can of soda, and I didn't want to throw it away because I thought it was cool to collect them. So, being the genius that I was, I decided to stuff the empty can down the front of my pants. I don't know why I thought this was a good idea, but I did. Well, as you can imagine, it didn't take long for me to realize that this was a terrible mistake. The can shifted around and made all sorts of crinkling noises every time I moved, and I started to get really self-conscious about it. But I was too embarrassed to take the can out of my pants in front of my cousins, so I just tried to ignore it and act like everything was normal. That is, until my aunt called us all inside for lunch. As we were all filing into the kitchen, I suddenly felt the can slip out of my pants and fall down my pant leg. It clattered loudly onto the tile floor, and everyone turned to look at me. I was mortified. My aunt picked up the can and asked me why I had a soda can in my pants. I couldn't even come up with a coherent answer, so I just blurted out the first thing that came to mind: I'm saving it for later. Needless to say, that didn't really help my case. I think my family still teases me about that incident to this day. But you know what? As embarrassing as it was at the time, looking back on it now, it's actually kind of hilarious. And I think that's the beauty of embarrassing moments from childhood. They might be mortifying in the moment, but they make for great stories later on. And hey, if you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at?
And that wraps up another laughter-filled episode of Not So Funny A. If you enjoyed the jokes generated by our AI algorithms, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our comedy-loving community.